We have 8 fun St. Patrick's Day themed designs for you to check out today. This first one is an adorable gnome that is inspired by St. Patrick's Day. So he'll have a fun rainbow hat. He's holding a shamrock. Super cute, super easy to follow along with this quick step-by-step tutorial. Now you can watch along and see how I create this gnome. I'm just going to let you know a few little details about this whole video. As you move along, you'll see that there's chapters along the bottom. So if at any time you're on a video that you don't love or don't want to watch, you can skip forward to the next tutorial. Like I said, there's 8 total. We have gnomes, unicorns, shamrocks, rainbow themed, lots of fun things for you to choose from. I am using a combination of acrylic paint and paint pens in this video. I've got links in the description to all of the supplies that I am using throughout all of the tutorials. So to make this gray beard, I just pulled paint pen into my white paint. I always use strokes going in the direction that your beard is going to be flowing, and it gives a little bit of variation to the color. And then it's all about decorating the hat. I'm going to do a fun rainbow. I started in the middle. I just wanted to make sure I got through all the colors of the rainbow at least one time. Now you can go ahead and fill in the face of your gnome. I like a peachy color. I like to do green shoes. And again, like I said, he's going to be holding a little shamrock. For me, the easiest way to make a shamrock is to put a cross on your rock and then add a little heart on the top, left, and right. And then you can make the stem a little bit thicker. Next, add on your nose and eyes. If you don't want eyes, you can make the hat more slouchy and make the nose a little bigger. That's just a preference thing. And then we're just going to go through and crisp up the lining around our hat. And we will go back after that shamrock has dried and add on a couple circles so that we have hands that are holding it. I missed those before. We'll line our shamrock as well. Let that black dry before you come in and add your hands on there. You can also add little texture lines within your beard just to give it a little bit more movement. And then you can come back with an extra fine tip paint pen and get that shamrock a little further out so your lining isn't quite as thick if you want to take the time to do that. Our next tutorial is this fun mosaic rainbow shamrock design. Now we're going to lay our shamrock out kind of how I discussed in that last video. Obviously it's going to be slightly larger. So just put as a sideways X, it's not quite a cross, on your rock. Create your hearts around it on 3 of the sides, and then you're going to create a stem. Now for this design, since we're filling it in, I put it on here, but I want it thicker, so I'm going to come back and make it wider. It doesn't really matter, you're going to cover all this anyway, so just make sure the outer edges of your shamrock at this point are the size that you want them to be for your design. You can kind of play around with this part as much as you want to. Once you like your lining, we're going to come in and just start breaking apart our shamrock into pieces. Now, keep in mind, we're trying to fit the whole rainbow from the center to the outer edges. So you need to have at least kind of 6 layers going on. So break into big pieces, break those pieces into smaller pieces. I'll show you a little trick before you fill in to make sure that you've got enough space for all of your designs once you kind of go through and give a rough breakup of each part of the shamrock. So once you've got all of the shamrock pieces broken apart, you're just going to come in with your extra fine tip paint pens or markers or whatever you're using and just place dots in each section, working your way either from the inside out or the outside in to see that you've got enough space for each one of your colors to work its way from the outside to the inside. Once you get going with your dots, you're going to kind of see, oh, I need a little bit more space here or a little more space there, and you can add in extra lines to create the spaces you need. And I do the whole stem in green as well. Go ahead and fill them in with your colors and then come back and crisp up all of those outlined areas, one little section at a time, and you will have this beautiful mosaic rainbow shamrock. Next, we're going to create this cute little pot of gold at the bottom of the rainbow. We're going to start by placing our gold down. I'm using kind of a swirling motion. You don't want straight edges. It's going to be a big pot of gold. And then we're going to make our cauldron. Now my gold was a little bit wet here, so it did bleed into my black a bit. So if that happens, doodle off the tips of your pen. We'll come back and touch that up later. So we'll do a rim, and then we're going to create kind of a bowl underneath for our cauldron of gold, and just go ahead and fill that in. Now when placing your rainbow, just start on one edge and it's pretty simple. I mean, it's a rainbow, pretty straightforward. I'm using my fine tip paint pens. I'm placing each color down first just to get the placement, and then I'm going to make them a little bit wider and make sure that there isn't any white gaps in between the color and bring them pretty close to that gold. We'll bring the gold up into the rainbow here in a moment after we write on our phrase, follow the rainbow. If you have a problem with lettering, you can do this in pencil first and then go back over it with paint pen. Let's go back and touch up that cauldron. Like I said, that gold kind of bled in a little bit, so we're going to give that a nice crisp edge on that side, and you can kind of wrap the edge around to give it more of that cylindrical look. Now, I don't like my cauldron sitting in the middle of nowhere, so we're going to add a couple little specks of grass and a little land underneath it for it to be sitting at. For this, I'm just using the extra fine tip paint pen, so it's a nice fine line, but that way it just isn't sitting in the middle of nowhere. Now we're going to take that gold and bring it all the way up over the edge of the rainbow, so the rainbow is actually disappearing behind the gold. Let that gold dry completely and then come back with your extra fine tip and kind of just create some texture to your pile of gold. You can give it an outer line and then a couple little squiggles within it just so that it has texture, like I said. I'm just touching up a little bit around my cauldron as well, but that's it. It's that simple, super cute St. Patrick's Day design. We've got another shamrock for you. Like I said, I think we end up having 3 or 4 fun shamrock designs. So first thing we're going to do on this though is we're going to split the backdrop into our 6 sections so that we can get our rainbow wedges coming out from the center fairly even. So I'm just giving myself a guide, and then I'm going to come through with each one of my colors and work my way all the way out to the edge of the rock. And this is great because it works with all different sizes of rocks. Once you've got all those pieces on, we're going to use our same little trick to build our shamrock on our rock with our black. Start small. You can always make it bigger. So we're going to fill it in, look at our shamrock size. I knew I wanted to fill this with gold, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to thicken it up. But it's always better to make it bigger. You can't make it smaller. So get your black shamrock to your liking on your rock. And then we're going to move on. We're going to take our black and create a line that separates each of our colors from the center of our rock all the way to the outer edge. And then we're going to come back and place dots along that line as well. We want to have some fun places to add the gold accents onto this design. We're going to also go along that whole outside and give it a nice black outline. Now come back in with your gold paint pen or either a dotting tool and toothpick, and you're going to fill in all of your circles. Now when filling in your shamrocks, I like to kind of do 2 dots. This is how I fill in hearts too. 2 dots at the top, and then you can kind of pull that paint. I'm going to show that again here on the stem because I can't get my paint pen in there, but with the toothpick, you leave a little dab of paint someplace it can be thicker and just pull that paint into the stem and into your smaller spaces. And that's just finishing up that design. Super cute, gold, rainbow, win-win for St. Patrick's Day. Next, we have this adorable little leprechaun. He's super simple to make, but sometimes with paint pens, the coloring just isn't right. So I've got a couple little things I'm showing in this tutorial that I think are worthwhile to watch. I don't love the skin tone being super peachy. He's a leprechaun, he should be pretty pale. So I'm going right over the top of the peach while it's wet with my white paint pen. It's okay to do this as long as you're using water-based paint pens. Just doodle off the tip of your paint pen until it's back to its original color. Once you've got your face on there, we're gonna come in and add on a big hat, big leprechaun hat. The lining of this is what's going to really pull it together. So just get these solid blocks on here first, and then when we come back lining, it will really pull together. So we've got our hat, and then we're just going to do a body shape underneath so he's not just a floating head. Be careful bringing that paint up to another wet color. You don't want that to come in. So we can bring it closer together once everything's dry and when we do our lining. Now for his hair, I know we talked about redheads, but it's not like a pure red like this. So we're gonna do the same trick we did with the face with the beard. So I'm using like a circular motion. So we got this nice fluffy beard, nice bushy eyebrows, and then we're gonna go right on top with orange. And if we kind of wiggle our way along, it's gonna pull that red and orange together to make the kind of color I'm looking for to have on his beard. Now I do make a mistake on this rock. Like I said, you have to wait for your layers to dry, and I didn't. I went in there with the black. It was wet. That cream color pulled into it. It made my eye too big. So if you get at it pretty quick, you can just kind of wipe up as much moisture as you can. It's going to be a smudgy mess, but we're just going to get as much of that black off with a Q-tip. I used a makeup sponge just so that it will dry quickly and we can come back and fix it later. So I'm going to work on some other things while that dries, like a gold buckle that we'll have as a detail on his hat, a couple gold buttons. Now we're going to come back in and redo our face. So we're going to do that creamy color with the white on top, kind of blend them together. You'll see me doodle off the tip of my white paint pen here. See how it starts off dirty, but keep doodling until it's white. Now when we're lining, we're going to actually create a top to our hat. So just a really thin ellipse along the top, and then we'll come down the edge of our hat, and then we're going to create kind of a black buckle along this. So we're going to put down part of it, but that gold is wet, so I'm kind of being really careful here not to pull into that gold. And we can just come back and finish that up later, but I'm just kind of laying out the design at this point in time. We're also going to come down and line our body. And then when we come in to line our beard, we're going to kind of use these little scallopy edges. Like I said, we want that beard to be textured. So we're not going to do a solid line along the outside. We're just kind of bumping along to create the separation, but not be a harsh outline. Our face is nice and dry. We're going to come back and we're going to do our bushy eyebrows again. Again, I'm dabbing kind of along so they're not straight lines. I'm going to go orange, red, orange, just to kind of get that color that we're looking for here. And then we're going to add on our eyes and a cute little smile. And I am going to come back and finish that buckle in the hat. So we're going to put a little black in the middle. You want that buckle to pop up just at least a little bit. I'm also going to line my buttons. And we are going to line our eyebrows. Now, you're going to see it looks kind of ridiculous right now. They're going to get a little bit thick with the black lining, but we are going to come back and fix that. Add a little white highlight to your eyes and maybe some little pink cheeks if you want to. Once that black is dry, we're going to come back in with our color one more time just so the color makes the lining a little bit smaller because it's just too thick to have a full outline. The last thing I'm going to do is come and add some arm lines just so he's got a little bit more body shape to him. And that's it. He's done. Next, we're going to do another fun shamrock design with some rainbow coloring to it as well. It's very whimsical and very easy to do. Start by placing a shamrock right on your stone. Again, start with small hearts. Make it as chubby of a shamrock as you want. But again, start small. It's easier to make it bigger until you like the shape of your shamrock. Then we're going to start on the outside edge and start creating kind of some curls that come towards the center of our shamrock. I'm doing some straight lines, some curly lines. I like to start by spreading them out and then kind of filling the spaces in between. One thing you're going to want to keep in mind as you start doing this, you'll maybe start counting. You want to have multiples of 6 so that you can have your rainbow colors going around. So I end up doing 18 on my rock. You can do whatever you want, but just kind of get all of those lines in there wherever they seem to fit well. Once all the lines are on, we're going to go and add a dot to the tip of each one of our lines, and then we'll come back and add some more dots heading towards the shamrock in the middle. Now these dots can be touching right next to each other, spread out, play around with this. You can always add more dots, so just kind of do a few on each one. Once you've got the color on there, you can decide if you want to add more. Once your black is dry, you're just going to start with each color and come in and dab, dab, dab in those dots. I've got extra fine tip paint pens here, but you could also do this with acrylic paints and dotting tools or even toothpicks. So just come in and start with one color, work your way around in rainbow order so that you are completing the rainbow multiple times. Now I chose to go with a light green just so it didn't match the shamrock completely. That's just a preference, but I just wanted to point out that I did that. Come back in the end and line your shamrock and it's done. Super cute, super simple. Next up, our unicorn is ready for St. Patrick's Day, complete with a nice little shamrock tattoo. So the basics of this, we've done our unicorn in lots of different themes over the years. So I'm just going to show some of the main things that people have problems with. So when creating your horn, I like to do section at a time. You want the sections to be slightly downhill. And then we're going to create our unicorn. I like to give myself a dot of where I'm heading when I create my hair. And I'm going to make this kind of nice and thick, but we're going to come back in here with our line. So again, make sure the outer edge of your hair is how you like it. We're going to cover it with paint. So any lines underneath are going to get covered up, so don't worry about it. I'm using my extra fine tip paint pens to come in so that I can get all the colors of the rainbow here inside of our unicorn's hair. And like you can see, it might take 2 coats of some of the colors. So just get 1 coat down. Don't worry about it too much. This is more for spacing than anything else. So get your first layer down. That way it can have some time to dry. And then we'll come back and do a second layer on that in just a bit. We are going to come in and do our unicorn horn with gold, and then we're going to fill in our actual unicorn face with white paint. Now I'm using acrylic paint instead of my paint pen here, probably because I couldn't find my big paint pen, but you will probably maybe need 2 coats. And I realized I forgot my second ear. You want to have a second ear poking up on the back side of your hair. Like I said, come in, do a second coat of that rainbow on the hair. You want those colors to pop and be nice and bright and vibrant. So take the time to do a second coat. It's worth doing it. Now when doing the eyes, I always flip mine upside down. It's easier for me to do arches, a couple little eyelashes on the side, and the nose I line up with the center of the eyes. Now we're using our little trick here, even on this tiny little shamrock, to get that on our unicorn's cheek. And then we are going to touch up some lining. Now I'm using my black extra fine tip at this point in time, but when I come back to line my shamrock on the cheek, I'm going to use my micron pens because they're really, really tiny and I can get right around that. If you don't have these, you can use the trick we used before. Go ahead and line the shamrock normal, and then you can pull that paint closer to the edge like we did before. I did add a couple little details in the hair as well, and this rock is finished. You can use this design for anything that you're doing St. Patrick's Day craft-wise. We are on to our last tutorial. I love this design. You can see the finished one similar to what we're doing in the upper right-hand corner. I used a template to trace the shamrock onto my rock in the first place. Now, I am using my micron pens on a bumpy rock, and I will warn you, do this with caution. You can wear down these tips. You have to be very gentle. I always say the ink wants to be on the rock. Don't press hard, doodle off the tip often, or just opt for an extra fine tip paint pen. This is a very old tutorial. I don't usually use my microns directly on my rocks so much anymore. I will go back with fine details sometimes, but it's just, they're expensive and it wears them down. So if you're watching this for the first time, you can use an extra fine tip paint pen for this part. We're putting a rainbow set of lines that's going to go behind our shamrock here. We are going to kind of create an edge to our rainbow and create a dangle coming downward from the design. Now we've done a couple of things today that are kind of all lending towards this tutorial. So these dangles are kind of like the radial dangles. I always like to have something heavy at the bottom of each dangle. So create your vertical lines, loops, dots, and here I do drops and diamonds, whatever you want to do. Decorate them however you want. Really have fun with this, creating the dangles coming down from the rainbow and from the shamrock itself. Once you've got those down, you can also create parts of your design that kind of go up and away on your shamrock to just fill in the desired space that you're working on. If you're creating a card, you can have these explode in all different directions, just like we did on that previous shamrock design with the radial dangles. They're just really fun to do. So a lot of this is repetitive with what we did there. Just get your design down and then we're just filling it in, almost coloring book style. So I'm going to let you watch me fill this in while I wrap up this video. I hope you found at least a couple of St. Patrick's Day designs that you can use in your crafts this season, whether you're doing card making, stone painting, anything on wood, whatever you're doing, just doodling on paper and you're looking for fun ideas. I really hope that these have you inspired. You can even let me know in the comments below which one you're going to do first, second, third, fourth, all of them. If you need full-length tutorials for any of these, you just want more details, more instruction, I have them linked individually in the description below to the full-length one. Like this one that I'm showing now, this original tutorial is 15 minutes long. Lots of tips and tricks and things like that if you need that kind of information. After this, I'm going to link to a bunch of Easter craft ideas since it is the season that's coming up next. And I'll also link to a video that I think you might like as well. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.